business owners kind of have a different take on life and risk and things like that. Hello, and welcome to episode 85 of Yellow Colored Glasses. It's actually kind of wild that we have that many episodes. Excuse me while I do a little mic adjustment. Today I'm doing another solo episode. The Mounces are out of town. Jake does not feel well, and so dun dun dun, left with me. And I wanted to take this opportunity to talk specifically about the podcast. Like, why did we start the podcast? What's this podcast about? And, originally, first of all, before we get into all of that, let's go through a review like we always do. And actually, for a review this time, I'm actually not going to read a review. I am going to ask that you go and leave a review. If you have not left us a review yet, please check out our Google page. That is where it makes this most substantial impact, is on Google. Google Analytics is super helpful for pushing our name to the top of the list whenever someone is looking for insurance. So go leave us a review. It is greatly appreciated. Helps us out so much. And then moving into my peak. What's my peak right now? My peak is that I have two peaks actually. The flow of Warden Mounts Agency is like really happening right now. We had just brought on two new people, Austin and Tristan, and both of them are really knocking it out of the park. Austin comes to us with over 10 years of experience. Tristan is brand new to insurance, but he is really taking the time to learn all the things. I feel like you can tell whenever someone is learning things by the types of questions that they're asking. Those are kind of like indicative of what they're holding on to. They can generally ask more intelligent questions. So that's really nice. Having someone that's really making an effort to figure it out is amazing. And then, of course, going back to Austin, having that 10 years of experience is just essential. So they are getting all of that figured out, and we're really, really, really grateful for having them on our team. So thank you to Austin and Tristan for being a part of our team, because it is so nice to have you guys here. Okay, moving into my second peak. What was my second peak going to be? Oh, yes. More personal. So that one was more professional. So I've owned a guitar for probably over 2 years now, probably 3 years. And I didn't do anything with it for probably the first 6 months, or very minimal. And then I would say about a year and a half ago, I took some lessons and definitely got the groove of some things. To make a long story short, I really feel like I'm starting to get a better grasp on things, or I'm nowhere near like being good at it, but I'm like headed in a good direction. I am almost like good enough to like do one whole song. That's deserves a round of applause. So that's really exciting. I'm happy to be figuring that out. Because I don't know, because why not? How about that? How about why not? So that's exciting. So now moving into the topic of discussion about this podcast. I know we've mentioned it before, but the original reason we started this podcast was to get, local businesses on and give them a platform to talk about their services, to talk about their products. And even though we don't get, tons and tons of views here on YouTube, we do get views or listens rather on Apple Podcasts. Number one, it's still exposure, even though it's not, thousands and thousands, it's still exposure. That's number one. And number two, whenever we take those short clips from each episode and post them onto our Instagram and Facebook, again, super helpful for us and our, making our presence known to the community. It's good for us in that way. And then it's also good for the companies and the businesses that we're interviewing, because it exposes them to our entire network and it elevates everything they're doing. It increases their exposure. So we have really enjoyed and really had such a blast interviewing so many different businesses and personalities and stories. It's been a lot of fun to hear everything. So if you have not already, this is a great time. This is definitely a promotional video. But if you have not already, please like and subscribe to the podcast. It helps us out so much. It helps the page grow. It increases the exposure potential to other viewers. So yeah, we actually had, on Caleb's most recent episode where he was talking about his vape vending machine, someone actually commented, you can actually go on YouTube and look at the comment. He is actually trying to do the same thing in a completely different state. And so things like that, being able to help someone out in that way is super cool. I would have never even thought that we would be able to help someone out in that way, because again, we're trying to focus more community and kind of a smaller area. But I suppose maybe that's a very small-minded way of thinking, because we reached someone in a completely different state, and yeah, we're able to provide them some insight through Caleb's story. Another thing that I have really realized in doing this podcast is business owners kind of have a different take on life and risk and things like that. And it's been really, really fun to talk to, again, different stories and different personalities about their journey and their successes and their struggles, and to just find relation in that and to find connection in that. Because whenever you're a W-2 employee, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that, number one. Number two, I've been a W-2 employee, so I'm speaking from experience. But whenever you're a W-2 employee, the problems are just different. You just have different types of problems. Versus whenever you are a business owner, you've got, again, a different level of problems, and your responsibility to resolving those problems is not only impactful for your own business and your own life, but in the case where you have business partners, there's that responsibility to them. In the case where you have employees, you have that responsibility to them as well. There's just a little bit of a heightened responsibility, which there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons to that. So being able to bring those people on and walk through those struggles and successes as well is a lot of fun. And I hope, inspires some people to, if there's that business that they've always had in the back of their mind and they want to start, I hope these conversations can be helpful in the sense of, you're going to be confronted with problems probably on a daily basis. It's just a part of it. But that's okay. That's kind of a part of the fun. That's a part of the challenge, is resolving and fixing and addressing those problems, not only for yourself, but again, for your business partners and for your team, and building on that. Because, once you find resolution to this problem, okay, so you get past that, and now you're encountering, my chin just loves to be in contact with this thing, and it drives me crazy. But anyway, what was I saying? Once you overcome one problem, it's inevitable that you're going to encounter another and another and another. And frankly, every time you encounter the next problem, it is more substantial than the last problem that you encountered. And so your tolerance for taking on problems becomes more firm, becomes more confident. So, when you're on level 10 of taking on problems, those level 1 problems are just so like you're knocking those out, no problem. So, yeah, I hope that these stories, I recognize that maybe when they do get a little businessy, I hope that it can still inspire someone else that has that little, business owner mentality in them, but hasn't quite made the jump yet. I hope that hearing these stories, you can find relatability in them and know that it's all a part of it and it'll all work out. And by the way, I don't have it figured out. I am far from having it figured out. I still encounter problems where it's not like I just immediately know the fix. Like I have to, spend some time with it to figure it out. And also it's a lot of like trying things and like failing and like not being good at it. Like I really feel like, our hiring process was a lot better than it has been in the past. I feel like there were some things that we could have done differently for previous employees that we've hired on, like prior to Austin and Tristan. So things like that, you try something and then you look back and you're like, okay, we definitely could have done that better. And just knowing that, like knowing that that's just a part of it. You're not a failure just because that didn't work out. You learned something. I really try to apply that to every single sector of my life. Like if I try something and it doesn't work out, I learned something. If you take the right perspective and the right approach to things, which is so much easier said than done, especially when there's, lots of emotions involved. But if you look at any situation from the right angle, generally you can find something that you could have either done better, responded better, said better, So business is a lot of that. And again, to anyone that has that little bug in them, it's all a part of it and you'll figure it out. And some days it'll be really fun and exhilarating, and other days you'll ask yourself why you started. And that's okay. Such is life. So, yes, really enjoyed having business owners on the podcast to come on, talk about their services, talk about their products, get into, specific detailed conversations about business and learning highs and lows. There's such a comfort, and this is, again, applies to so many areas of life. There's so much comfort in knowing that someone else has experienced something different that you are currently facing or have faced in the past. There's just, I think we should all have some level of confidence of just knowing that we're doing the best we can. Simultaneously, you can't deny the comfort in knowing that someone has been through what you've been through, particularly on the subject of business, where it's just very much willy-nilly. You're just kind of out there floating, latching onto things, hoping that it works, and then letting it go if it doesn't, and then not feeling guilty or holding a grudge to yourself. It's just a lot of that. It's a lot of testing yourself. So moving on to the next point. I want to know what you guys want to see from us. What what types of businesses or what types of people do you want to see on the podcast? Even though our primary focus has definitely been business owners, we've had, football coaches on here. I know Dustin interviewed his mom. So we've interviewed employees. What type of people do you want to see on the podcast? What do you feel like would be beneficial to you as far as hearing from these different types of people, these different types of personalities? Again, we very much focus on business owners, but it doesn't have to be that way. Again, we very much relate to business owners because it's a very specific experience, but we're definitely open to hearing out different things. So please leave in the comments what you would love to see. And then the next point that I want to make on that is, if you or someone you know is interested in making themselves more present to a different audience outside of their own audience, for example, like our podcast, let us know. We're starting to get an influx of people reaching out to us asking to be on the podcast, and we're definitely always open to that. We still want referrals and recommendations from our audience as well to, because if you're referring someone to our podcast, that means that you want to hear from them. And it would be no surprise to, if other people wanted to hear from them as well. So send this podcast or send this clip, however you end up seeing this, send it to someone and let's get them on the podcast. We can do in person. We can always do a Zoom as well. So whatever you're most comfortable with. I will definitely say that I can speak for us four owners. I think we would rather do it in person. It's just more personable in person, but we've done Zooms in the past, so it's not impossible. So yeah, send this to a friend or family member, someone who you feel like would be good and beneficial to have on the podcast. So my very last point in conclusion, if you have watched any or all of the episodes of Yellow Colored Glasses, if you've even watched a clip on Facebook or Instagram, if you have liked something, thank you so much for your support. It means the absolute world to all of us here at Warren & Mounts Agency. We appreciate you more than you know. We work hard every single day to serve our clients in the best way we can. And we want to provide value in any way that we can. And through that includes the podcast and allowing others to hear stories that are relatable and local too. So thank you so much for your support. And again, like and subscribe to the podcast. We would appreciate that more than you know. And we will catch you in episode 86.